"Don't come to the rehearsal dinner, Dad. I mean it. You'll embarrass us." She said it the way you'd tell someone to wipe their feet before coming inside. Casual. Like it was obvious. Like I should have already known. I was standing in my kitchen, still in my work boots, holding a bag of groceries I'd picked up on the way home, because I thought maybe I'd cook something nice that weekend. Something she liked when she was little. Shepherd's pie. The kind with the crispy potato edge she used to pick off and eat first. I set the bag down on the counter. I didn't say anything right away. The drive home from the grocery store had taken 20 minutes. The drive after that phone call felt like it lasted 3 days. My name is not important. What I am is a 64-year-old man who spent 41 years working as a site foreman for a commercial construction company in Kitchener, Ontario. I started when I was 22, pouring foundations in the rain, and I worked my way up the slow, honest way. I'm not a rich man, but I own my house outright, a 2-story on Glenbrook Drive that I bought in 1987, and I have money in a TFSA and a modest pension, and I have never once asked anyone to carry something I could carry myself. My wife, Joanne, passed away 11 years ago. Ovarian cancer. She was 54. We had 1 daughter together. I won't say my daughter's name. Not yet. In this story, she's just my daughter, because for a long time that's all she was to me. The whole reason I kept going after Joanne was gone. The reason I fixed the leaky faucet and mowed the lawn and made sure the RSP contribution went in every February. The reason I stayed. She grew up well, I thought. Straight-A student, got into Western for business, met a man named, well, let's call him what he was. A man who came from money in a way that made him think money was a personality. His father did something in investment banking in Toronto. They had a house in Forest Hill and a place up in Muskoka. When my daughter brought him home for the first time, he shook my hand and looked at my living room, and I could see him doing math in his head. She saw it too. I think that's when it started. Not the cruelty, the distance. First it was small things. She stopped calling as often. When she did call, the conversations were shorter, a little more careful, like she was speaking with a slight accent she'd recently acquired and didn't want me to notice. She started saying cottage instead of cabin. She started ordering wine by the vineyard. These are not crimes. People grow and change. I know that. But then she started being ashamed. I noticed it first at a dinner she hosted in their Waterloo condo. They'd moved back from Toronto after the pandemic. Her fiancé had taken a position at a tech firm on King Street, and she introduced me to his parents, and I watched her do this thing, where she smiled a little too widely and moved the conversation along just a beat too fast, the way you do when you're worried someone's about to say something that'll take too long to explain. His mother asked what I did. "He's in construction," my daughter said, before I could open my mouth. Not retired, not former foreman, not anything that gave it shape or weight or the 41 years it deserved. Just, he's in construction. I ate my dinner. I drove home on the 401 in the dark, and I thought about Joanne and what she would have said, and I decided I was probably being too sensitive. I kept telling myself that for about 2 more years. The engagement was announced in the fall. My daughter called me on a Sunday evening, excited, genuinely excited. I could hear it, and I felt it too. The way you do when your child is happy, this involuntary warmth that rises up whether you're ready for it or not. I told her I was thrilled. I asked about the ring. I asked when they were thinking. I did everything right. 3 weeks later, she called again with a different kind of voice. They were planning a June wedding. The venue was a restored heritage estate outside Cambridge, the kind of place that costs what it costs and doesn't apologize for it. They were looking at a guest list of about 120. The catering, the florals, the photographer from Hamilton who'd done shoots for Toronto Life. It was all adding up. His parents, she said carefully, were contributing $50,000. There was a pause. I knew what the pause meant. "What are you thinking you need from me?" I asked. "Well, his parents' contribution covers the venue and catering. But there's still the dress, the flowers for the ceremony, the rehearsal dinner, the honeymoon." She named a number. $32,000. I want to be honest. I didn't say yes immediately. I asked her to send me the breakdown. I looked at it for 3 days. I moved some things around. I pulled from the TFSA. I called my financial advisor, a woman named Greta who has the patience of a saint and who did not say what I could tell she was thinking. And then I said yes, because she was my daughter, because Joanne wasn't here to walk her down the aisle with me, and I thought, I genuinely thought that doing this meant I'd be there, that I'd be part of it, that spending this money was how I bought my seat at the table. I was wrong about that. The next 8 months I was involved the way a contractor is involved in someone else's project. I was consulted on logistics. I was asked to confirm wire transfers. I was sent PDF attachments with line items and asked to initial my approval. The florist in Guelph needed a deposit by Friday. Could I handle that? The honeymoon hotel in Portugal required prepayment. Could I send it directly? I did, every time, without complaint. What I was not asked about was anything else. I was not asked what music I thought was nice. I was not asked if I had a preference about the ceremony readings. I was not consulted on the rehearsal dinner menu even though I was paying for it entirely. I raised this once, gently, and my daughter said, "Dad, we just have a specific vision." And I said, "Of course," and I let it go. I let a lot of things go. The dress was the one I remember most clearly. She had found one at a boutique in Oakville, an Italian designer, which I didn't know was a thing you needed in a wedding dress, but apparently it was. And it needed to be ordered 8 months ahead and custom fitted and altered twice. The total came to just over $6,000. She texted me a photo of it on a mannequin and said, "Isn't it beautiful, Dad?" It was. I paid for it. I had it put in my name on the order form because the boutique required a credit card on file for alterations and pickups. A small detail. I didn't think about it much at the time. 4 months before the wedding, my daughter called me and said she'd decided on a maid of honor who had a cousin who did bridal alterations at a much higher level than the boutique, and she was switching. "You'll need to pick up the dress from the boutique," she said. "I already called them. It's ready." So I drove to Oakville on a Tuesday afternoon, and I picked up my daughter's wedding dress in a long white garment bag, and I hung it in the spare bedroom closet, and I thought, I am involved now. Centrally, there's a wedding dress in my house. I am part of this. The rehearsal dinner was 6 weeks out. My daughter had chosen a restaurant in downtown Kitchener, a farm-to-table place that had opened a couple years back, the kind with exposed brick and a menu that changes weekly and uses words like foraged without irony. I'd made the reservation and put down the deposit myself back in January. She called me on a Thursday. "Dad, I need to talk to you about the rehearsal dinner." "Sure," I said. "What's up?" "His family is going to be there. His parents, his aunt and uncle from Vancouver, his grandmother from Halifax. She's flying in. It's going to be a formal thing, Dad. Very formal." "Okay, and his mother has certain expectations about the evening." I waited. "I just think it would be better if you didn't come to the dinner. Just the rehearsal itself is fine. You'll walk me down the aisle, and that's important. But the dinner after, I think it would be more comfortable for everyone if you sat that one out." I remember looking out my kitchen window when she said that. There's a blue spruce in the backyard that I planted the year my daughter was born. It's about 30 feet tall now. I looked at it for a long time. "I'm paying for the dinner," I said. "I know, Dad, and I appreciate it, but it's not about money." "What is it about?" A pause. A familiar pause. The one that meant she was about to say something true that she'd dressed up to sound like something else. You don't always fit in those settings. I love you, but you don't speak the same language as these people, and it makes things awkward, and I just need this to go smoothly. I don't always fit. I set the phone down carefully, not hanging up, just setting it down on the counter and standing there for a moment with my hands braced against the edge and my eyes on that blue spruce. Then I picked it back up. "Okay," I said. "Really? I'll stay home." She thanked me. She said she knew I'd understand. She said she'd make it up to me. She said the wedding itself would be beautiful, and that would be what mattered. I said, "Good night," and I meant it. I want to be clear about what I felt in the days after that call, because I think it matters. I was not immediately angry. That came later. What I felt first was something older and quieter. A kind of grief. Not for myself exactly. For something I'd believed that turned out not to be true. I had thought. All those wire transfers, all those PDF attachments, all that money moved out of the account Joanne and I had built together over 30 years. I had thought it was building something. A relationship. A seat at the table. A father's place. It was not. It was a transaction. And the transaction was now complete. The anger came on the 4th day. It came slowly like weather. First just a feeling of wrongness, then specifics. The dress in the closet. The boutique in Oakville. My name on the order form. I hadn't told her I'd picked it up yet. She hadn't asked. She'd just said, "Call them, it's ready," and I'd gone and gotten it and never mentioned it, and she'd never followed up. I sat down at my kitchen table with a cup of tea and I thought about that dress. Then I thought about the florist deposit. Then I thought about the restaurant reservation. Then I thought about a line from something my father used to say, "You want the gift? You take the giver with it." I didn't make any decisions that night. I went to bed, but I slept badly, and in the morning I sat back down at that same table, and I made a list, and then I made some phone calls. The florist in Guelph. I called and explained that due to a family emergency, the arrangements needed to be canceled. I apologized. I lost the deposit, $400, but I canceled it. The restaurant in Kitchener. I called and spoke to the manager, a man I'd met when I made the reservation. I told him there'd been a change. I was refunded the deposit minus a cancellation fee. The honeymoon hotel in Lisbon. This one was trickier. I had paid in full, just over $8,000, and the cancellation policy was strict. I called. I spoke to their reservations team for 40 minutes. I explained that there had been a serious miscommunication and that the booking had been made under my name without my final authorization, and I needed to discuss options. They put me on hold. They came back. They offered a partial refund of 60%. I took it. The wedding dress, already in my closet, already mine technically, in every way that mattered to the boutique in Oakville. I did not touch the venue or the catering. That was the fiancé's family's money, and I wanted nothing to do with it. I transferred the recovered funds back into my TFSA. I closed the binder I'd been keeping with all the receipts and confirmation numbers. I put it on the shelf in my office, and then I waited. My daughter called 3 days before the rehearsal dinner, which she had apparently rebooked at a different restaurant downtown, at her fiancé's parents' expense. I assumed, or maybe her fiancé's. I didn't ask and wasn't told. She called because the florist had called her. "Dad." Her voice was careful, controlled in the way of someone controlling it deliberately. "The florist said the order was canceled." "They said you called?" "I did." "Why would you do that?" "I decided I didn't want to keep paying for a wedding I'm not invited to." Silence. "You're invited to the wedding, not the dinner." Dad, that's completely different." I explained why. "You explained that I don't fit," I said. "I heard you. I understood. And then I thought about it for a few days, and I decided that if I don't fit in the spaces that are funded by my retirement savings, I probably shouldn't fund those spaces. This is childish. The honeymoon hotel in Lisbon has been canceled too," I said. "I got 60% back. The restaurant refunded most of the rehearsal dinner deposit. I'm going to mail you a check for what I didn't recover, because that money was always meant for you." "Dad, stop. Stop. You can't. The wedding is in 3 weeks. I know when the wedding is. We had a budget. We planned around your contribution. You can't just pull this out now. You planned around $32,000 from a man who doesn't fit," I said. "I think you and your fiancé need to have a conversation about that." I heard her crying then, and I want to say something honest. It hurt. It hurt the way it always hurts when your child cries, regardless of anything else. My chest tightened, and my first instinct was to take it back. To say, "Never mind, I'll rebook everything, I'm sorry." I sat with that instinct for a long moment, and then I said quietly, "I love you. I'll see you at the wedding." I hung up. The next 2 weeks were not quiet. She called 4 more times. Her fiancé called once, and his voice had a particular tone, the voice of a man who has never had to manage a difficult situation himself and found it faintly offensive that one had arisen. He said my behavior was putting a lot of pressure on everyone. I said I imagined it was. He said he thought we should revisit the parameters of our arrangement. I told him we didn't have an arrangement. We had a misunderstanding, and it had been clarified. He didn't call again. His mother called once. I was so surprised I nearly dropped the phone. She was gracious about it. Genuinely, I thought, and she asked if there was anything she could do to help resolve things. I told her I appreciated the call. I told her I had no dispute with her. I told her I hoped the wedding would be a good day for her son, and I meant it, more or less. She said quietly, "I'm sorry. She should not have said what she said to you." That mattered more than I expected. I went to the wedding. I want to be honest about this too. I almost didn't. The morning of, I sat in my truck in the driveway for probably 15 minutes, engine running, trying to decide. I was wearing the suit I'd bought the previous fall at Moore's in Cambridge, charcoal gray, single button. The salesman had talked me into the pocket square and I was glad he had. I looked fine. I looked like a father of the bride. I drove to the Heritage Estate outside Cambridge. The venue was beautiful. I'll give them that, the old stone building, the gardens, the white chairs set up in rows in the shade of the oak trees out back. There were flowers, different flowers than the ones the Guelph florist would have done, clearly assembled in a hurry from somewhere a little less lush, but flowers. There was a string quartet. There was a tent with chandeliers. I sat at the back. I watched my daughter walk down the aisle. I watched her from a distance, and I thought about the first day of school, the shepherd's pie, the blue spruce in the backyard, and I thought about Joanne, and I thought, she looks beautiful, whatever else is true. She looks beautiful and I am her father, and this is her wedding day, and I am here. I was fine until the reception. At the reception there was a program. My name was not in it, not as the father of the bride, not as a contributor, not anywhere his parents were listed. The venue was acknowledged. The photographer was credited. I sat at table 11, with the office colleagues she'd invited out of obligation, and a cousin of the groom's from Kelowna who'd had a glass of wine on the plane, and was already cheerful in an unfocused way. The table was at the side of the room, near the service entrance. I ate my dinner. The beef was good. The wine was from Niagara, and I appreciated that. And then, about an hour in, the fiancé's father, a tall man in a well-cut dark suit, silver-haired, the kind of man who moves through rooms like he's used to them, stood and gave a toast. He spoke for about 5 minutes. He talked about his son's accomplishments, his character, his future. He said how proud he was. He talked about welcoming my daughter into their family. It was a good speech, polished. He'd clearly written it out and practiced it. He mentioned me once, just the once. And of course, thanks to her father for his contributions to making today possible. His contributions, the room applauded politely and moved on. I had not planned to speak, I want that understood, but after that toast, something moved in me that I hadn't entirely expected. Not rage, not even bitterness exactly. Something more like clarity. A sense of, this is the moment. If not now, when? If I leave tonight without saying anything, I will drive home to Glenbrook Drive and sit in that kitchen and look at the blue spruce, and I will have let this stand. I will have let it be the final word. I am 64 years old. I have poured concrete in January in southwestern Ontario. I have raised a daughter alone since she was 23. I have been decent and quiet, and I have let a lot of things pass. I stood up. I picked up my wine glass and I walked to the front of the room. A few people looked up, uncertain. My daughter's face went white. I didn't ask for a microphone. My voice carries fine. I'm sorry to interrupt, I said. I'll be brief. The room went quiet the way rooms do when something unexpected is happening, and people aren't sure yet whether it's good unexpected or bad unexpected. I'm the father of the bride, I said. You might not know that because I wasn't in the program, but I am. I've been her father for 31 years, and I want to say a few things before the evening gets on. I looked at my daughter. She was sitting very still. I paid for a lot of what you see around you today, I said. I won't list it all because this isn't about money, but I want to say that I paid for it the way a father pays for things, because he loves his daughter, and because he hoped that love would be received the same way it was given. I paused. 3 weeks ago, my daughter told me I didn't fit, that I didn't speak the same language as the people in this room, and she asked me not to come to the rehearsal dinner while I was still paying for it. No one moved, no one spoke. The string quartet had stopped. Someone must have signaled them. I canceled the flowers, the honeymoon hotel, the rehearsal dinner reservation. I kept the dress. It's still in my spare bedroom closet, and she's welcome to it, obviously. But I kept it because my name was on the order, and I thought that detail seemed worth holding on to for a little while. A few people shifted. I could feel my daughter not looking at me. I'm not here tonight to cause trouble, I said. I'm here because she's my daughter, and this is her wedding day, and she invited me to the ceremony, and I came. But I think that the people in this room, the people who love her and who she wants to build her life around, I think they should know who she is. And I mean that kindly. I mean that she is the daughter of a man who showed up, who always showed up, even when he was told not to. I set my wine glass down on the nearest table. I wish you both long and honest lives, I said. I'll see myself out. I walked through the room. I didn't look back. I heard a sound, a murmur, a scraping of chairs. Something. I kept walking. Outside, the evening air was cool the way June evenings get in Ontario. Warm in the sun, but the moment you step into the shade, there's something underneath it, something that remembers winter. I walked to my truck and I sat in it for a few minutes. My hands were steady, which surprised me. I drove home on the back roads, slower than the highway, but I wasn't in a hurry. I got home around 9:30. I changed out of the suit and hung it carefully. I went to the kitchen and I put the kettle on, and I looked out the window at the blue spruce, dark now against the sky, and I thought about Joanne. She would have had things to say. She always had things to say. She would have had opinions about all of it. The dress in the closet, the table 11, the toast, the walk to the front of the room. Some of them I wouldn't have agreed with. Some of them would have been right. I miss her. The kettle boiled. I made my tea. My daughter didn't call that night. She didn't call the next day either. 3 days after the wedding, I got a text message, not a call. A text that said, "I don't know if I can forgive you for what you did." I read it twice. I set the phone down. I thought about it for a long time. Then I wrote back, "I hope you can. I'll be here." That was 4 months ago. She hasn't called. The dress is still in the closet. I don't know what to do with it. Some days I think I should box it up and ship it to her. Some days I think she knows where it is, and the fact that she hasn't asked for it is its own kind of answer. I still make the shepherd's pie sometimes. Old habit. I end up eating most of it myself and putting the rest in the freezer. I planted a second blue spruce last fall, smaller one, on the other side of the yard. Something to watch grow. I don't know how this ends. I don't think parents ever do, really. You raise them and you love them, and then they become someone and you hope that someone still has room for you. Sometimes they do. Sometimes they decide for a while or forever that you don't fit. What I know is this: I showed up. I was decent. I set a limit when the limit needed setting. I said what needed to be said, in a room full of people who needed to hear it, and then I walked out and drove home and made my tea. I'm not sure I did everything right. I'm not sure anyone ever does. But I was there. I am still here, and the door is open if she ever decides to come home.